Thanks very much for that summary, Jodie, of the roadmap and the key initiatives that it talks about. Now, folks, we've got a little bit of an interactive session coming up next, and I guarantee you it won't be too much hard work, given you've put in a fairly big day already listening to some fantastic information. What I would love you to do, and I might ask Ben behind the curtain if he can pop up Mentimeter. We're going to use what's called an online platform. It's totally simple to use, and this is for people who are also online. All you need to do is take out your phone, or if you have a tablet with you, you can also do it on your computer for those people who are online. You go to your web browser and you type in www.menti.com. The other option is if you did happen to pick up one of these from the front desk when you came in, there is a QR code, and it's the bottom QR code on the second page in, so you can also photograph and it takes you there. Or if you can reach that far, potentially that. Now, if you have got through to you've entered www.menti.com, it'll ask you to enter a code, and the code is 19345898. And it'll also appear it's up on our screen here too, but hopefully in a minute it'll transfer over to Menti. I'm just going to poke my head around the corner, give me a sec. Sorry, Ben, to put you under pressure. Screen, brilliant. Okay. Ta-da! Oh, nicely done. So there's 31 people at least who've got that right and counting. Fantastic. So I do encourage, if anyone is still with us online, please stay with us and contribute. Because you can, yay, thank you to that one person who's online.
Aww.
That's very lovely. And I'm glad to see no one said somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a bit of a test run, a bit of a warm-up just to get you going with Menti. It's a pretty easy tool. So hopefully this is going to work. I'm just going to try with my clicker and see if this works. Yay! All right, next question. So you should come up on your screen. If you haven't, it might ask you, it might say something like presenters change the slide, go to slide or something like that. I'm looking for 3 key words or a short phrase. What makes the Coorong important to you? You can put anything in there and things should start popping up. Well done. You can enter 3 things, should give you a couple of options there. Beautiful. Fantastic. And you probably all know the beauty of a word cloud is the more times people enter the same word, the bigger it appears in the centre, which is always nice to see some of those common things that we feel about something so special as the Coorong. You can see their uniqueness, peace and solitude, biodiversity. If anyone is having any trouble logging on, give us a shout. The other thing is if you don't happen to have a smartphone or a device, we do have paper versions. So just pop your hand up if you did need that. But if anyone's having any trouble, catch Mel's eye and she'll come and give you a hand. Fantastic. So thank you very much for contributing to that. You can see a whole range of things. Oh, Storm Boy, bless. Love that movie. Beautiful place, but you can see unique. It's a unique environment, nature, water, ecological value. There's birds, there's fish. It's about partnerships. It's about wilderness. It's about being a place of peace and solitude. Relaxation, massive. Lots of different things there. Brilliant. I'll just give you another few seconds and I'll flip over. There's a few more coming in. It's really great. All right, next one. Opportunity for a bit longer answers this time, I think. I think you might even get up to 200 or 300 characters. But in your own words, what does a healthy Coorong look like to you? Give you a few quiet minutes for reflection there. Now, Nadine and Jodie, are you the only two that get to come up the front, or who else are you nominating? It could be any one of you at the front row that have been presenting today. But I invite all of our presenters to observe, to look at what's coming through on our screen up here about the types of things.
I think everyone's having too much fun.
About what a healthy Coorong looks like.
Everyone's having too much fun on their phones, Alec. I think you were...
Oh, were you? You can't do that. I love it. But I'm hopeful that there are things that possibly don't surprise you or hearten you in your work. People are talking about, a healthy Coorong is wilderness with birds, fish, flora. It's thriving. There's abundant and diverse waterbird communities, thriving ecosystems, a diverse life and food webs, enough water to support a healthy and resilient ecosystem, for example. Lots of different things there.
I was actually just thinking about the word cloud because I haven't worked in the Coorong as long as most scientists in this room or been involved as most of the community here. But when I was trying to think of what I'd say, the word unique came to me. I was like, it is unique in the world. It's really a unique place. And to see that being reflected, I think it's good to know. I guess it's a common value between everyone who either is getting to know the Coorong or has been involved with the Coorong for a long time.
Just like to say as well is that a very engaged community, and everybody in this room is probably been to events like this a lot. And I've looked at a lot of documents that have talked about your values over time. We really do want to check in again. It's like what's important to you, and it's a bit about what you've learned, and see how this matches up with our current desired state and if we've missed anything from a social perspective as well. But yeah, we do really value your values as well.
I note there's a number of comments there, and we heard through some of the earlier conversation today around sufficient flows, how important that flow element is to people to have a healthy Coorong.
And I think that was picked up in pretty much every talk. It was a salinity gradient, it was a salinity gradient, it was the driver, So how do you change the salinity? It's generally water in all its forms.
I did see someone said no driving on beaches or ban driving on beaches. Did you see that? But that's an interesting aspect because you noticed in the word cloud people talked about recreation, and I don't know, I've done this previously in the science forum talking about what is your connection to the Coorong, and a lot of people have a lot of long-term memories, intergenerational memories. Not only, of course, with our First Nations peoples, but people like myself. I used to come down to the Coorong and camp there most years with my extended family. So it's a beautiful place that we enjoy for a range of reasons, but certainly needs to be balanced about some of the different uses. I like this one, young people enthused about the Coorong. How have young people, I noticed in Tim's talk, he had some photos of some younger Nyiranjeri people, but how have you folk been engaging with our young people? Have they been involved in the process?
We've definitely had a lot of young people engaged from Nyiranjeri communities in particular, and in speaking to those groups a lot in the last few weeks. It's something they really want to keep prioritising. It's that intergenerational knowledge transfer. It's getting people employed. It's getting people connected to the country. And I'd say that we would like to expand on that with our community partnerships program going forward and looking at ways to engage young people, particularly with schools.
I love that last comment. A wonderful window on what the world used to be like. That's what a healthy Coorong looks like. Thanks for that, folks. I'll move on to our next question. Oh, sorry. Beg my pardon. I will not.
No, I was just going to reflect, looking behind me there. A lot of these comments are around the aquatic ecosystem, the environment, flows coming down the River Murray. But I think it's critical to recognise that those environmental values are so inherently linked to the cultural and social and economic values of the region, and that the healthy Coorong that we're considering through the environmental values here that spreads a network throughout the region that with a healthy Coorong the whole region can thrive, and I think that's an important note to take home.
You can also come to the Coorong and it's efficient. Our messages are all wrong.
Thank you for that. The other thing that I think, so there's our ban driving on beaches comment. I've noticed down below there was some other comments in more detailed ways about how full drives can potentially think about it during breeding season and things like that. Did I hear you say before, sorry, I was busy with the tech, I think you said this would be great information to compare against your desired future state information. Is that what you were reflecting on? Yeah, because I can see lots of words in there that actually can be those measures around the different conditions of things that would assist in reflecting the values in this room. Brilliant. I might move to our next question.
And can I just add, there will be, if you go into the Your Say website as well after this, shout out for that. There's also an opportunity to provide more feedback on that too.
Absolutely, there's a more comprehensive survey, and some of these questions are reflected in it, but we did want to test some of this out with you here today and have the opportunity to tease out some of the responses too. Now, a bit of a different question for you. When Jodie was talking about the roadmap, the draft roadmap, there are a range of, there's 7 principles, restoration principles that have been identified. And here we're looking for you to rank them in order of importance. Now, that doesn't mean whatever falls to 6 and 7 we leave behind. It's just to get a sense of how people in this room feel about the different principles. They're all important, of course, and that's why they're in the roadmap. But you can see there's a number ranging from support ecosystem recovery, include activities that seek highest level of recovery possible, engagement, drawing on many types of knowledge, using clear targets, goals and objectives, being informed by natural reference systems, and include activities that form part of the restorative continuum. You'll note on this one, what you need to do is just you tap on the little drop-down box and you'll be able to select options, and they'll disappear as you select them so that you can rank them. It'll just be interesting to see how your thoughts evolve on screen. I'll give you another couple of minutes on this. It's not necessarily the easiest task, particularly with probably some limited info at the moment about what each of those principles are, but encourage you to take a copy of the roadmap and review it at home and then jump on the Your Say site. So what do the folk on the seats, the hot seats, think about what's emerging? Is it surprising what's sort of heading up the top at the moment?
No, this is great.
It is swapping around a lot though, so it's not clear.
It is moving. But what I'm reading is that you want to see the most effective actions implemented to restore the system.
Yep.
Yeah, the rest keep moving around, but they keep going out on top, and that's great.
I think it's that call to action or the activities based, underpinned by the other ones, but obviously that's pretty clear priority.
It is. That support ecosystem recovery is fairly consistently at the top. You're exactly right.
A little bit of competition there for number 2, but I think it might be.
But naturally, they're interlinked, aren't they? Though.
Yeah, exactly.
Those 2 in particular. What about the bottom? At the moment, we've got informed by natural reference systems. Now, I personally don't exactly know what that means, so I don't know whether anyone else knew what that meant. And therefore, it's headed down the bottom. But Jodie, do you want to talk a little bit to that? And why is Michelle laughing so heartily?
It's a funny one. It was in the International Standards for Ecological Restoration, but with the Coorong being so unique, there really is no other system exactly like the Coorong in the world. So we, with less unique wetlands or perhaps smaller wetlands, you might usually choose a reference system that you think it should look like. With the Coorong, we don't really have that. So that's part of the reason why we developed the desired state documentation and understanding. So that's what we're aiming for. In absence of a true other Coorong, this is our desired state for the Coorong.
And Jodie, while you've got the mic, activities that form part of the restorative continuum, what are we talking about there?
That's about the integrated package of restoration activities that work at different time scales and at different spatial scales, so that they all work together in conjunction to get the highest level of recovery possible. If we just go for one action that we may be able to implement in 5 to 10 years' time, then we may miss opportunities to restore some parts or functions in the interim. So it's really about that package working together.
Great. Did anyone have any questions for the group? Yes, my favourite man. Hang on, I've got to get you a microphone. Hang on, I've got a microphone coming.
Yeah, just to comment on that, and I mean, I think it's where everybody's leading, and you expressed it, I guess, in esoteric terms, and there's, you know, the journey you've been on and taken everybody on it, to almost, not completely because of the structures that have got to be built, but you've really done the EIS statement, if you like, and impacts to justify going forward. Coming from an engineering background, I tend to hang on figures, and you have produced, and particularly today, some very compelling graphs of figures. And to me, it's actually to apply the numbers or the range that as a group you have confidence to put out there to the politicians and decision makers. And in particular, this is the maximum salinity that can be tolerated, and your time frame, that variance. Give them the hard figure. 2 ways to achieve it. One, seawater in and out with the structures, and one, hopefully, whatever the fresh waters and come down and getting it injected at the right place so it does the most good, whether it's from Saltwater Creek, the Albert connection, the existing mouth connection. And the other ones at the main entry, you're at Murray Mouth, you've got the dredges there pumping in and out, but it's a rarity in the literature that the dimensions of the mouth and the channel leading to the North Lagoon is actually put in dimensions. And that, of course, can vary, depth versus width, you know, Manning's formula. But I think for where you're at, they're the 2 key things that actually drive you. Without that, you can't achieve what you set out to. And that's why I think it's important to define it collectively and make that hard decision so it's set in concrete. It's like the old Mojo ads. You give them something to hang on to that charms them, because you've done the charm, but it's the hard figures, that's how we monitor it. Because once that channel's silted up, you're stuffed again. Or if those connectors never go in, you won't achieve the risk management you have to. And it was sort of that point that's missing. And believe me, it's now time to do that to get the money and the support you want. Because Canberra will procrastinate. But you're giving, no, we have to do that. For every day you leave it, we're going to go downhill because there's more of the black ooze that you can't get out. And the slide today, I thought was excellent on the macrophytes, or what can put in that new discovery. Hang on, these guys clean it up if we give them the right environment. And that's a huge breakthrough. And you give it to them in a diagram form that they can see it like you did, just enhance it and whatever else you want to add to it. So that was more the pitch to achieve, what you've set out there. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I guess in comment to that, it's pretty exciting looking forward as well, because we've got something as powerful as the Coorong dynamics model, and we can really, it was there, as Claire said, we had a model, we've built on it, and we've now increased the ecological add-ons, and we can really start asking some pretty awesome questions, some pretty interesting questions of it.
It's very
and giving it figures and numbers and
compelling. Well, that's how we solving the problems with flooding. We had to do one of those. You've sophisticated with all the nutrient dynamics, but that was the basis, really entered into law that we manage floodplains with, and that's a continuing field.
Did anyone else have any comments or questions around the draft restoration principles that we've been talking about? No? Oh, one down the back. Melissa.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate what my fellow Murray-Darling associate has said, is that there is often the disconnect between your science outcomes and the advocacy to local, state and federal government. And part of what I'm doing is trying to sit on these different boards in Coorong Lower Lakes to understand more of the science and bring that to the policymakers. But, we just need to think, I think all the research is really important, but I think as a research body, through the Goorda Institute, is there a way to think about, what your outcomes are now, what your recommendations are, and how that's going to be taken forward to governments to achieve the outcomes, including increased flow, because all this science is amazing, but what's going to improve it is flow. So, yeah, is that done, and are you doing that through the Goorda Institute?
From a Goorda Institute perspective, we work very hard to make sure that the knowledge created through our research is provided in multiple avenues to decision makers. So, as I've described previously, we embed our end users that are involved in the design and the delivery of projects to make sure that there's knowledge exchange being undertaken throughout the process of this HCHB program. There was also access at specific critical decision points to our experts to make sure that those decisions were informed by the best available knowledge at that point in time. So from that perspective, we work very hard to try and make sure that that science is informing decision making. We then move into the broader basin planning perspective throughout the whole of the Murray-Darling Basin. And it's at this point where multiple political and social lenses start getting applied around decision making as well. So we have to be cognizant of that, but making sure the visibility of the science, the visibility of the best available knowledge can inform, for South Australia, the position for South Australia to get the best outcomes for South Australia from the revised Basin Management Plan. But that is also decision making being undertaken by the state government. And as I say, there are political and social lenses that get put over that decision making. I'm not speaking on behalf of the South Australian government, so I'll pass on to those that can.
So just to get back to your question, I think it was a comment around how important it is and advocacy around getting more water. And I think we can say that's pretty clear, yes. The Coorong has had more water in the past and it does continue to need more water. But if we need to be clever as a state about it, and a region, we also have to say, while we continue to advocate for more water, we also have to look at other ways that we can improve the Coorong as well. And even extractions aside and the Murray-Darling Basin Plan aside, we've still got climate change. And I think that was quite clear with the scenarios that came out this afternoon. So we also have to plan 4 different scenarios and start to consider all those scenarios and what we can do with some water and what we can do without some water as well.
Thanks, folks. An opportunity to ask any other questions perhaps that you may have around how the science has informed the proposed restoration actions. Does anyone have any questions about how that's come about?
Even online.
Where does the science fit? Pardon?
Even online, there might be some questions.
Yeah. Do I have anything online? They can participate in this though, so I'm hopeful that they're doing that. We'll see if anything's come up. We may well have, maybe we've covered everything already. Or you're running out of puff. Over here, Mel. Just up here. Question? Oh, thank you. We've got a new.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Bishop. I'm a Goolwa resident and small-time tourism operator. And I have got to ask, has the facts that you guys are uncovering also been potentially wrapped up and conveyed in a better tourism message? Because at the end of the day, perception is reality. And if tourism can help get across the fragility and the value of the area, is that being evaluated on a factual basis as part of your strategy for a healthy Coorong, healthy basin planning and development?
I think community engagement is a large part of the phase 2. So heading into we're sort of, I guess, wrapping up one piece of work now. There's been the big trials investigations. There's been, I guess, communicating the trials investigations, which is what part of this is, and then there's looking into the future coming up. And I think, yeah, as well as the sort of ecological and the science-based and the salinity drivers, is one of the themes that's come out today is really that community aspect as well, the sort of cultural values, the social values. So, yeah.
We have another question up here.
So that's just to continue on with Jamie's question. There has been a tourism project done through the entire Coorong, looking at how we can enhance tourism moving forward in conjunction with the restoration works. So that's been done through the Department of Environment and Water and informed from tourism operators, Nurringerry, NAC, everyone. So that document we're still yet to see, but it's definitely been looked at through the program. So,
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks very much. Now, I may ask you just to turn around. Ta-da! Where would you like to start? Was it cherry picking, Jodie? Restoration actions, was it cherry picking? No.
Is that about the science that we've shown today, the cherry picking the science? Is that perhaps the question?
I'm assuming it means that someone's asking about the actions, the proposed actions that made the way into the roadmap.
No, they all went through a process with a lot of consultation. For the regional wetland management, there's been years of consultation and years of long listing different types of on-ground works and what would be feasible. Both internally, lots of studies and modelling done, and then, making decisions with broad groups. There was a long list of infrastructure options, so we've been working through that for years, and we looked broad scale, international, what's been done, so we really looked as broad as we can. And then again for the ecological restoration project, which is still proposed, that was really fed out of the outcomes of the Trials and Investigations project. So a lot of the options that Luke considered in his nutrient removal options report, and Sabine came up with the macroinvertebrate restoration, Michelle's rupia restoration, and we held a wide workshop with a lot of scientists in the program. Again, looked at all the options, what could we do? And then whittled them down to which ones are most feasible and practical and would actually work. So there's a long process that went behind picking all of those actions and shortlisting them.
And I'll put another plug into the Yorso website, because I think with the ecological restorations part, we want to hear from you as well. We want to hear from everyone.
And there's a few questions around, well, there's quite a lot of questions up here, but another one around, from your perspective, is there any scientific knowledge missing or underrepresented in decisions? For example, today we haven't heard about the seaside effects or impacts. Geomorphology, for example, is missing. So I know others have touched on a few gaps that you've come across.
Yep, so the science presented today was really the trials and investigations of the Coorong side. So it was looking at how that functions and how we can use that science to inform management in the future. What I guess I want to make clear, and I was going to wrap up, I'll say it here, is that the Coorong Investigations project, so the slide we're talking about with the options with the Southern Ocean Connector, is for the future. There's got to be a lot more engagement on that, and clearly there has to be a lot more science and EIS process, environmental impact statement process, and that will definitely involve looking at the seaside of things as well. So the focus, has clearly been on the Coorong and the functioning, because it's a very different system to the seaside, but that is something we're very conscious of and looking forward to looking into the future.
Just following on from that question around infrastructure, how have we come to the decision of where the infrastructure will be placed in the Southern Lagoon? Have you got to that level of detail yet?
So I think, if you look at that report, it can show you where it is. That it went through, I guess, what you call a first pass process. So where it might be the most effective. So some of the modelling, and Claire and Beck, you might have to correct me here, some of the modelling showing where the best placed along, but also where some of the shortest distance, but it's also been through the first pass of the Cultural Heritage Survey as well. So it's taken into account a number of considerations already, but again, they're sort of they're the high level. Any further would involve a lot more detailed surveys. Anything you want to add to that?
A question around, what is the best action plan to bring the result we need? Now, I'm assuming the restoration roadmap is essentially that, because essentially you've sort of said what the current state is, what the desired state is, and to try and bridge that gap, I'm assuming that the roadmap is how you get to that desired state. Is that right? So at the moment, you feel that's the best plan of attack to get to that desired state?
Yeah, I'm not sure that can be answered unbiasedly. Yep.
Pardon?
I'm not sure we can answer that unbiasedly.
And that's fine, but hence that's why it's out for consultation at the moment, isn't it, to get that feedback from people. So really looking for you all to go home and peruse this more at your leisure, jump on the Your Say side or however you want to engage with the feedback and provide it to the team so that they can continue to refine that roadmap moving forward. Did anyone else have any comments? I know there's some other questions there that we can come to, but any other questions from the floor, I guess, around how the science has informed the proposed restoration actions that have found their way into the roadmap as it currently stands? No? Alrighty. One key learning, something new from today. Has anyone learnt anything new? I learnt microbes matter. That's great. Tony, Charlie, are you going to offer it? Yes, absolutely. Hang on, let me get a microphone for you. Absolutely, but everyone else, please feel free to pop anything up there. Something new you learnt today.
Basically everything. It's just been a day full of fantastic information. For someone who lives just a little upstream, about 600 kilometres upstream, but I think the contrast between the Riverland and a broad floodplain, and what we've experienced in the floods and our ecology, our landscapes, our cultures, and to come literally just a quick 3.5 hour drive down here, and the uniqueness factor is just so evident. Everything is just so different, and yet the realisation, of course, is that we are just so interlinked. We're so connected, whether it's migratory birds flying through our area down to you, whether it's fish that are basically moving up and down the system, whether it's the stories that are told by Aboriginal people up and down that river system. We are so linked. And I think, for me, the ultimate realisation is that we should do an exchange. I would love to have you guys do this in the Riverland and talk to our community, or literally for you to come up and listen to people who are working on the science and management in our system, and for our people to come down here, especially tourism operators who, as Jamie sort of flagged, we've got this opportunity to promote a region like Coorong to the world. It is so special. And I think, with that level of advocacy from people living up and down this river system, not just this community here advocating for Coorong, but literally the whole river community, I think it would place Coorong higher on the political agenda in terms of let's protect this. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the idea of going up to the Riverland. Jodie? Yeah.
Roadshow. Thanks very much for that, Tony. And I think, if I may share, the Coorong's the only thing like it in the world. It's pretty unique, isn't it? It's incredibly unique, as you all know. Folks may want to just look behind you. Birds fly. Yeah, that was a nice new fact for me. What's DDs? Did I miss something? What's DDs? 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 I don't know what that is. Was that a mistype? I don't know what that is. Worms don't like black ooze. Floods are good. I think that's meant to be floods are good. Water flows, the Coorong likes big floods. I love that there's been so many people, First Nations scientists, government, actively working together to work towards one goal. It's a completely impressive program. I agree with what Tony said around, I'm pretty lucky I get to come to these types of things and hear information that I would never probably hear otherwise. And every time it is so interesting, and I think it'll be great to share the message far and wide about how special the Coorong is, particularly with the type of information that you shared today. Nutrients and the way they are so essential to our healthy Coorong. Water flows. The high kilojoule value of key fish. Someone asking me for the next question. Thank you. I'm not even sure we've got another one. The recent flood is not too much over mean average pre-European flow. I thought that was interesting too. Any observations or comments on key learnings, folks?
I was going to share my word.
I like this. Hang on. Amphipods are tastier than I can't even say those words. Chironomids? Chironomids? Yeah.
And you can also say the word ooze and be a professional scientist. Just putting it out there.
I like it. It's a thing. Well, I'm glad that you have learnt new things today. It's obviously part of why we hold these forums. Last question. Is there anything you would like to know more about? Put anything up there you like. This is the last question. But is there anything else you'd like these lovely people to talk to you about either today or another time? Yes, we've got a question over here. I'll just get you a microphone. Is that all right?
Yeah, and this question is both for now but also leading us into the future.
Yes, into the future.
As
Good
well.
point.
I have a question. We talk about water flows, but I'm just wondering, has any work ever been done about nutrient levels from the overcleared agricultural landscape and increased water tables and how that influences the system. I know you talked very briefly on that before, but I'm just interested to know, does that increase nutrient levels into the system, and how does that influence? Has anybody done any work on it?
So I guess if it's a more general question, I can answer, and then I might even pass to Luke. But any large-scale clearance and the use of agricultural chemicals in a catchment has impacts. Each system, if you start looking at the Great Barrier Reef, there's been a lot of work in that sort of thing. There would be similar impacts to the Murray-Darling, but they can be quite hard to quantify at different places as well, and obviously groundwater has quite a big influence, and the groundwater table, particularly down in the southeast, has changed as well. So yes, there would have impacts, but I think as Luke picked up, and it's not something you can necessarily easily fix or easily quantify either. Luke, is there anything?
More about the southeast drain or the whole of Murray-Darling Basin, or both? The whole, yeah. We have looked, there is quite a good Murray-Darling Basin Authority data set, and about 40 years of data that we've looked at. There's certainly some trends at some sites of increasing nutrient concentrations over that time, which isn't really unexpected, but I think what we're seeing now is a lot more what we probably call disruption of delivery. Because of these hydrological droughts, things get stored in the landscape and then they suddenly come into the river system. That includes nutrients, that includes carbon, and we're really trying to understand how, I guess, some of these extreme events that are occurring are maybe linked to more disruption of, instead of those regular flooding cycles, that things get pushed out and floodplains get re-wetted, things get sort of stored and then mobilised at different frequencies. So yeah, it's a bit hard, but there's certainly some evidence, as Nadine said, that land use change and intensification is increasing nutrient concentration. And I would add the Murray-Darling Basin Plan is meant to address water quality issues and have water quality management plans across the basin. I haven't really seen much evidence of a serious effort in that space yet, and I'll be certainly commenting on that in the review of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, including to my friends here.
It seemed to be focused on water flows and all that sort of thing, but not major revegetation programs.
Yeah, Michelle.
One of the things about the land-based restoration, terrestrial vegetation restoration is, yes, they can help make a difference, but the condition in the southern Coorong, the Coorong South Lagoon, or the Coorong generally now, still has to be addressed. So even if we perfectly eliminate all additional nutrients coming into the system right now, going on, we still have to solve the problem of the state of the system that it is now. So I think Luke mentioned in his talk, we do need to address catchment management issues perhaps a bit more specifically in the future, but that won't mitigate the effect on the system as it is at the moment. So bottom line is we've still got to fix the Coorong South Lagoon. Yeah. Thanks. But some of Luke's work actually shows that the inputs from land-based nutrients are for the data that's available haven't been like the big giant pulses that people assume, but what's happened is this trickle input and then it doesn't go anywhere. So we've got this long-term accumulation that's led to the situation that we have now, and that very long term, 50 years type long term. And then we had the drought and that exacerbated it. So, and then we've had, pulse flows since. So all of those things still happened and we can't magically make them go away. So we still have to solve that problem.
Thanks, Michelle. Alrighty, folks, thank you so much for contributing to our session around the draft roadmap. As we mentioned, please go online to the Your Say site. There's a link and a QR code in here. If you need a hard copy of the survey, we can also make them available, but we'd love to hear more from you about the draft roadmap. I'm now going to hand over to Nadine to make some final closing comments and close our forum off for today. Thanks, Nadine.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you everyone for coming out today. I know it's been a long day, but I think you can all appreciate we couldn't have made the science part any shorter because there's that much science. So thank you. I do want to also emphasise that there's more and more engagement coming. So this has really been about updating on the science, but now we're moving forward into the next phase. There will be more engagement on the infrastructure investigations project coming up. And also we're heading down to Meningie and Kingston, as you saw, more details coming out soon. So come and join us there if you're from that region as well. Yeah, more coming. But thank you again. I hope everyone's going to go home inspired by ooze. See ya. And birds that fly 19